Okay, so this example is asking you to factor and solve. So how would I factor this one first? What's the first thing that I need to do to factor? Find a common factor. And what would be your common factor? -3. Remember that if your first term is a negative, you must factor out that negative. So that might be something that I've missed in yours. I did not see that negative. Okay, so if you're going to out a -3, that means you're going to have to divide each term by -3. So what would you have left if you are dividing by -3? What would be your first term? X squared. It's not plus, it's minus. Yeah, minus 8x plus 16. Okay, you guys have to be careful here. Is that when you're dividing by negative, your operation is gonna change. Okay, you have to be careful. And this is what I said. I did not see that negative when you came to me. Okay, so what are you looking for here? Since now after I factored the -3 out, I have a trinomial. So I'm looking for two numbers. They multiply to what and add to what? So since B is negative and C is positive, that means what? B is negative and C is positive. Both of them are negative. Okay? What multiplies to 16? 4 and 4, -4 and -4. -1 and 16. -8 and -2. They both have to be negative. Okay, so -4 plus -4, what does that give me? So that's my answer, no?
Yes.
Right, that's what I'm looking for. So that means it's y equal -3 x minus 4 x minus 4. So I need to find the zeros. What would be my zeros? So in this case, I have the same 0, right? Yeah. Remember that we talked about previously that when you're looking at a quadratic function, you might have two zeros. You might have only one 0, right? Where your 0 is on the axis, or you might have no zeros at all, right? This is the case where I have only one 0, okay? Where I have only one 0 on the x-axis, which is the same thing as my vertex. Okay, if I'm looking at this factor, what do you factor first? What's your common factor?
6.
Now, because my first term is a negative, then it has to be -6. Okay? So my greatest common factor is -6. I divide this by -6 and this by -6. What do I have left? 4. 4x squared. 4x squared, yep. Minus 1. Okay, so if you look at this, whatever my leftover is a binomial or a trinomial? Bi. It's 2. 2. So that means I can have to look at difference of squares. 4x squared is a square term? Yes, 4 is a square term, x squared is a square term. Is 1 a square term? Yes. Is there a negative between them?
Yes.
See, if you did not factor that -6 out, then you would not have a negative between them. If you did not factor a negative. So, difference of squares, that means I have to have two brackets, one with a positive, the other one with a negative. And I have to square root the first term. To square root the first term, what do you get? 2x, right? When you square root 4x squared, square root of 4 is 2. Square root of x squared, remember you divide the 2 by 2, you get 1, right? What's the square root of 1? And I factor. Now I need to find my zeros. What would my zeros be? Remember, do not take the shortcuts, guys. Do not take the shortcuts. Write it down. When you write it down, you'll see it. You don't see it. So, isolate for x. What do you do? 2x equals negative 1. Then what do I have to do to get rid of that 2? Divide by 2. So x equals negative a half. Let's set the second one equal to 0. Bring the negative 1 over. So that becomes 1. Divide by 2. So that means your zeros is negative a half and half. A lot of people miss that. You guys have to learn how to factor. If you don't know how to factor, you can't do anything else. It's as simple as that. If you don't know how to factor, you can't do anything else. So if I'm looking at the last equation, I have negative 4x squared plus 24x. What's the first thing I want to ask myself? Common factor. So what would be your common factor? Negative 4x, right? If you look at this, because the first term is negative, so I have to divide by negative. 4 is a common number, and x is a common letter. Okay? So what do I have left if I divide by negative 4x? Nope. It's just x. Yeah. What would be for the second term? So what's 24 divided by negative 4? What's x divided by x? They cancel each other, right? Question like this will be on the test. Okay? If I look at my whatever I have in the bracket, I can't factor this anymore. It's already in the factored form. Okay? So you see that you have factors. One that's we're used to. The other one we're not used to that. Okay? So if I want to find my zeros here, I can set this equal to 0. Right? So x equals 6. How about my other 0? What is it? So if you set this equal to 0, right? So negative 4x equals 0. So what's x equal to here? Be careful, think before you answer. How would you move it over? You divide by negative 4, right? So if I want to divide by negative 4, then x equals to what? What's 0 divided by negative 4? 0. So whenever x is not in bracket, is not added or subtracted, your x is going to be 0. So in this case, I have two zeros. One at 0 and the other one at 6. So I have something that looks like this, or probably not this way, the other way. I have something that looks like this. Okay? So be careful. If you have a common letter, you're going to have to factor it out. If it's not with a bracket, that means x is 0. Okay? Be careful with this. Okay? So I'll do this question tomorrow because I don't want you to do too many things. Make sure that you go to your homework and then do all the factoring and solving.